So this morning, as we get going, I am going to be talking about running the race. And you can see that we are talking about unlikely partners, pacers, and friends. Um, so in case you didn't know, I run a little bit. And as I've been running, the one thing that I learned is you have to commit. And the best way to commit is to pick your race. And I kind of feel like Blue Bridge is our race. We've picked this race. And when you pick a race, your commitment level goes up just a little bit. You have to pay your registration fee. Now, we're not asking for a registration fee. You got to get some decent shoes. We're also not asking you to buy shoes. But you have to commit, and you have to be ready to start training. And so December, we're talking about the why we're going to change some things, why we're moving to Saturday nights, why we're going to faith. And so during December and January, we're going to start the training phase of getting ready to run our race, because we're not quite to race day yet. So as you're training, I just want to talk about training a little bit. It's painful. Your muscles get sore. You don't want to do it. You don't want to make time to do it. People think you're crazy. You get a lot of like, why on earth are you doing that? But the best part is when you can find a partner. Most people are more successful when they're training or getting ready to run a race when they have a partner. And I wanted to share a little bit about my training partner who, she came out with me so early it was still dark. And we went to a track and we did the workout from the downstairs. Like, it was awful. But great at the same time, because we knew as we did it, we would be stronger runners later. And so we went around this track. We did lunges on the straight. We did squats. We had to look each other in the eye while we tried to karaoke across the thing, which is super awkward, by the way, especially as you're almost falling over. But the last part of that workout, the last thing it wanted you to do was sprint. We had already been at this like 40 minutes, and it wanted a sprint at the end. And that's kind of how training goes sometimes, is it's asking you to push harder when you're tired, because that's how you grow. We're gearing up for race day, which is going to be our launch in February. Now, once you get past your training phase, you get to go to the starting line. And the energy is insane. The people are nuts too. They're literally like running the race before they even go over the starting line. Like, they're warming up. Their intensity is really high. They're eating weird things to build their energy up. So as we get going, I'm not going to make you eat weird things, but I am going to challenge you to get your energy up. Get ready to get to the starting line. And then once we get there, what we're going to find is some unlikely partners, pacers, and friends. Because what we're going to be asking you to do is to join a community group. We want to gather, to grow, and to go. We want you to gather with us on Saturdays, yeah, but we want you to gather during the week with your community, with your people, with your partners. Pacers are somebody who runs just a little bit in front of you. It doesn't mean they have their everything together. it means that they've got their stride down a little bit better than you. And so you're going to find some pacers along the way as we get going. Go ahead, stay in their wake. Use their stride for your momentum. But I'm going to encourage you to find some partners and to find some friends. Our scripture this morning is Hebrews chapter 10, verses 19 through 25. And it says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, we can boldly enter heaven's most holy place because of the blood of Jesus. By his death, Jesus opened a new and life-giving way through the curtain into the most holy place. And since we have a great high priest who rules over God's house, let us go right into the presence of God with sincere hearts, fully trusting him. For our guilty consciences have been sprinkled with Christ's blood to make us clean, and our bodies have been washed with pure water." That's the start of the race for most of us, is that initial relationship with Jesus. Our guilty consciences have been sprinkled with his blood. We're ready to go. And then the next part, it says, "Let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm. For God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." We are most vulnerable when we're alone. He knew what he was talking about here. Don't just stop at your initial relationship with Christ. If you stay there and you stay alone, you're going to become vulnerable. You're going to get a little bit isolated, and sometimes you're going to feel unseen. But Paul has another way of doing it, and it's his one another list. On the table, you'll see a piece of paper that it's a full sheet. It's like front to back. And these are all the one anothers of the New Testament. Briefly, I'm just going to go through a few of them, which is forgive one another, accept one another, care for one another, encourage one another, submit to one another, restore one another, carry one another's burdens, bear with one another. And some of you are going, why on earth would I want to do this with another person? Or how do I do this with another person? And our little answer here is to be in community with other people. Blue Bridge, since the beginning, we've done small groups. I will say I'm just going to share a few stories of small groups from the past about kind of, how we were with one another. In marriage group, we sparked a lively debate talking about who brushes their teeth before coffee and who brushes their teeth after coffee. If you want to see who needs to go to marriage counseling, talk about that for a minute. Women's group, who's run by Leslie, has fostered deep interpersonal relationships because she is not afraid to talk about the hard stuff and leave it open for everybody to share. I'm also part of a small group that's outside of Blue Bridge, which is it's a bunch of different women who, on paper, we don't stack up next to each other. We don't look anything like each other, but we do get together to serve together. So there's different types of small groups. The one thing that I feel like we didn't do well with small groups, and the only reason I say this is because it's what other people have said, they end too soon. Just when you're getting ready to get comfortable, just when you're getting ready to do life one another, groups is over and we take a break and it's on to the next season of groups. So going forward, we're asking you to commit to your group for a little while longer. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but what we're asking is we want you to take the time that it takes to do life with somebody else, which is super scary. Doing life with somebody else and getting ready to run the race with them means that it's okay to walk into their house when you're in the middle of a marital disagreement. It's real awkward for both parties. I say that because it just happened to me. Not because somebody walked into my house, but because my spouse and I walked into somebody else's house in full-on it mode. I personally stepped in it. I have a tendency to be insensitive when deep emotions arise. That is my confession to you. You are all now part of my community. But what happened is we have done small groups with them. They have become part of our community on a deeper level outside of small groups. And we just walked in as we were. And they handled it really well. They didn't kick us out. They didn't ask us what was wrong. They just fed us. It encouraged our kids to go play and had decent conversation with us and saw us out the door later and probably did one of these. But that's life. That's doing community with people and being willing to commit to the long haul with people. So going forward, we're going to stop calling small groups and start calling them community groups. And a community group is going to look a little something like this. It's going to be inward focused, friendship, intimacy, spiritual growth, accountability. That's part of the one another list. Some of that is accountability. You have to be accountable to people. And then outward focused, serving your community, neighborhood, or an organization together. As a community group, you're going to find out what is your heartbeat. Maybe your heartbeat as a community group is feeding hungry people. So you go serve at Second Harvest. Maybe your community heartbeat is schools, and you adopt a school, and as a group, you commit to pray for them. There's, a ton of different things. But as you grow your community group, the goal is to grow. We want to launch in March with 6 community groups. That's kind of a big goal out of the gate because I don't know that we've ever launched a small group season with 6 small groups. But they're not small groups anymore, they're community groups. The goal is 2 or more people gathered together starting to do life. And not just life, we want you to disciple each other. And a disciple is just a person who is following Jesus and trying to grow deeper in that relationship. And so in your community groups, the goal will be, as a group, to disciple together, to grow together. Maybe your group has a burning desire to go all the way through the book of Matthew, and it takes you 72 weeks because that's a lot, and people get sick and don't show up. That's okay. But you're growing, you're doing life together. Maybe it takes you 6 months to find an organization that you can all agree on. That's okay. You've probably sparked some lively debate and talked about social concepts that most people are uncomfortable with. So as we go into community groups, I don't want you to be afraid of what it's going to look like or who's going to show up, because that's not really what matters. It doesn't matter if you're a color-coordinated group of hipsters or a mixed bag of misfits or overrun by tiny humans. Your community group should look a little bit diverse. Draw your circle a little wider, and just begin to get together. So what we're hoping for when we launch in March is that groups meet regularly twice a month. Maybe more. Maybe you're an every week kind of group. But the minimum ask is twice a month. And that you meet together until June, where we're going to end with a big gathering of all the groups. So what I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, that group is so much cooler than us because they have 20 people there. If they have 20 people, they are now a class. They are not a community group. Okay, so we're not going for 20 people. Okay, you might if you have a lot of kids, but we're talking adults in the room. And hopefully, as we get in these community groups, it's going to help us finish our race because we found partners. We've found somebody who's running just a little bit smoother than us. We've found some friends. I read a quote this week that was, people become friends in your living room and family at your dinner table. And so as community groups, I'm hoping that you'll also become family, that it goes deeper than friendship, that it goes into the territory of family, which if you guys have dysfunctional families, you'll be okay. You'll know how to deal. And the thing about finishing your race, I have yet to run. I've never won a race. I am slow, okay? Just so you guys know, I'm super slow. I train a lot, but I'm really slow. But every race I've ever done, I have never seen the finish line until it's upon me. I don't know how they do it, but they always manage to put that thing behind a corner. And so you're running forever, it feels like, and you've made some partners along the way who are running alongside you. You're looking in each other's eyes like, is this ever going to end? And you finally see that finish line, and you've got, I don't know, yards to go. They put that thing where you only have a little bit left to go, and you just start sprinting because you know you're done. And there's this thing, I like to call it Victory Road. And as you're coming into the finish line, there's people on the sidelines, and they're cheering you. You don't know them, but it's like, okay, I can run past these people. I don't know them, but they're cheering. They don't know me. They just know I'm tired. They're cheering my partner. People are taking pictures. And then you get through the finish line, and it's a celebration. And that's our goal. Our goal is to get to the finish line together with other people, hanging out together, and at the end, celebrating. So we actually have some questions. So you guys are at tables this week. And I'm going to make it a little bit awkward. And I'm going to ask Phil and Troy to move to the table behind them. And we are going to practice what it looks like to be a community group. So your table is now your community group. Welcome. There's some stuff on your table. There's some little cards that are hospitality catchphrases, or maybe what hospitality catchphrases should be. Hospitality should not give you a heart attack. If it shouldn't raise your heart rate and your blood pressure, it should give you a sense of excitement. So one of the cards, I know, it simply says, "Come in." That means someone showed up at your house and your laundry's on the living room floor because you haven't folded it yet. And you look them in the eye and you say, "Come on in." Another card says, an open ear is cozier than a clean house. Because sometimes it's just about listening. Good enough is good enough. The crock pot is your friend. A crock pot will feed a lot of people. Mixed nuts and messy people are life. So these cards are just a little bit something that you can think about. You can take them home with you. I'm not crafty, so I just threw them on your table. But I have some questions, and I'm going to ask that you do these questions with your community group. So I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes to answer it. It's okay to say pass. I've found that if I say it's a really easy question, people tend to go really deep with it. So I'm not going to preface it this way. But if you don't know somebody at your table, and even if you know everybody at your table, I want you to start, if you're going to answer, by saying who you are. So the first question, who belongs to you? Go ahead and share your answers with your table. I asked this question to my daughter, Elizabeth, this morning, who is 7. And I said, Elizabeth, sorry, they're twins. They're identical twins. I'm a bad mom, and I can't remember who I'm talking to half the time. But I love them equally. But my daughter, Elizabeth, I'm like, who belongs to you? I had to know if a 7-year-old could answer that question. And she looks me in the eye. I'm going to cry because this was a moment. You belong to me, Mom. I know. Yeah. And then I asked my 9-year-old son, who is a 9-year-old boy right now. And I said, Andrew, who belongs to you? Caden. He has 2 friends named Caden. And my teacher. Oh, okay. Cool. That's right on, kid. I like that about you. So the next question I have for you guys, who keeps you accountable? Go. I have multiple people in my life that keep me accountable. Probably the most notable would be my husband, who very delicately points out when I've said something I shouldn't, when I'm going down the negative road. I'll leave that there. There's a whole lot more. When you live together, man, there's a whole lot to keep each other accountable for. He's just started pointing out when I'm insensitive. So he likes to say he didn't always have feelings, but now he does. Which is, the kids taught him feelings. Honestly, he's always been more compassionate than me. So he's always had feelings. I am just not always the most sensitive to those. The last question for your group is to describe a meaningful relationship and why was it important to you? It can be current or it can be past. Go. The great thing about people and meaningful relationships is they can be important in different ways during different seasons of your life. Sometimes a really meaningful relationship can just be a person who, when you see them maybe once a week, But what they do is they come up and they grab your hands and they look you in the eye and they say kind words, or they speak life over you. They share Bible verses like while making eye contact with you, and it's really awkward because not only are they holding your hands when you don't like to be touched, but they're maintaining eye contact and speaking these strong spiritual words over your life. I've actually had 2 women in my past that was their character. And I don't know if it was their age and they just took full license of a life well lived and they just walked up, and I don't care if it's uncomfortable, I am going to speak over you right now. And they took those times very seriously, and it had such an impact on me because I think now, I want to be that someday. But hopefully, as you notice, some of the questions, they kind of progressed a little bit deeper as we went. That's how a community group starts. It starts kind of surfacely with your name, and it progresses into deeper conversation, deeper willingness to go to the line for somebody. And I just have one challenge for you, but it's a daily challenge. And I want you to do it every single day until we launch community groups. And I want you to walk out your front door, because most days you leave the house or you at least walk outside. And you're going to pray this: thank you, God, for placing me right here, right now. Who do you want me to see? And then you're going to go run your race. And I can guarantee you, God's going to open your eyes, and you're going to see somebody that day. Whether it's somebody that lives in your house, because sometimes they need you to see them, or your checkout person at Walmart, or your neighbor, or whoever. But I just want you to be ready to grow with people and be ready for God to open your eyes and to see people.
Thanks, Amanda, so much. Give it up for Amanda for that vision she just casted for us. So I talked about last week, everything we've done over the last 6 months, there's a why behind it. So every word that we used, every environment that we've created, there's a why. And so the word community, you'll hear more about that moving forward. So what did we learn today? For those who missed last week, again, come January, we are moving. And we are doing church on a whole new night. So where are we moving? Faith Tri-Cities in Pasco. When will we meet? Saturday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. When is this going to happen? January. So month of December and January, we are easing everybody into it because we understand that people are going to come and go like they usually do because they're traveling or they're homesick or so on. So we're taking the next month and a half to prepare you by casting vision for pillars of our church that we want to be about. And today's pillar was about groups. So we always want to gather, grow, and go. And groups gives us the opportunity to do those 3 things. So over the next few months, we will be recruiting group leaders to be one of those 6. So some of you we might reach out to, say, hey, let's have coffee, let's have you over for dinner, let's talk, let's begin to dream about what might look like, or how this works, and then the cool thing is we're going to partner with all of you throughout the whole entire process. So like I said last week, if you missed last week's talk where I casted vision for everything, and then over the next 3 weeks we're going to break it all down, check out our podcast on the app, bluebridgechurch.org/app. And you can find our podcast on there, or you can watch the video that will be uploaded this week. And then, I challenged everyone last week, I'll do it again. We are asking this church, if you've come to Blue Bridge over the last 5-6 years, once or every single week in the history of Blue Bridge, we are asking for one more year. One more year. We understand there are churches that are in the Tri-Cities that are blossoming, that are healthy, that are doing awesome things. And we hope to be in that category moving forward. But we are saying, give us one more year as we continue to change things and adopt new ways of doing things to help us get to that point. And as always, if you have questions for us as a church, as an organization, our mission is not a secret. We would love to share with you more in detail these things because we only have a 30, 40-minute window up here, and then we say, see you later. So if you ever want to talk to me or one of our trustees or anybody on the lead team about where we're going and why, grab us. We'd love to have that conversation with you. But in the meantime, I want to give you guys a couple opportunities. So next week, we're going to continue this kind of gathering where I will be casting vision for our gatherings. So this week, we focused on community groups and the why behind it and the vision for it and what it's going to look like. Next week, I will be sharing how we will begin to start doing our normal gatherings. So, for example, when we start meeting on Saturday nights, starting in January will be kind of a launch phase, so it'll be kind of like this kind of environment. But in February, when we do our hard launch, I will be sharing the how and the why of what the gathering is going to look like. So what we start doing. Today you saw a little piece of it. So when we first came in the room today, we wanted to make you laugh. Why? Because we want to see you smile and relax, and it just makes you breathe a little bit more. It makes you feel a little bit at home, and then you can begin to be more vulnerable with what we're trying to get to you for life change. So the second thing is this. Next week we will also be having Santa pictures. Yeah, who's ready to cry on Santa's lap? Okay, I'm going to cry in Santa's lap. And so that'll be next week. So we are not providing a photographer, though. So if you want to bring your camera or borrow someone's camera here, as far as their phone, I mean, because no one has a camera anymore. And if you do, that's awesome. But bring your phone camera because you have it on you anyways. Take a picture. There you go. There's your Christmas card. Share it. Make fun of people. It'll be great, right? We're totally for bullying here at Blue Bridge. And the third thing is this. Coming up at the end of the month, the very end of December, as we exit the Carousel of Dreams, as we're still thankful for the time we've had here and the staff, we want to continue to serve them. So like last year, I didn't get to be a part of it, but we served at their, not Christmas Eve, their New Year's Eve big celebration that they do out here. So we're going to serve at that event again. So if you're interested in that, we're looking for at least 12 people that will want to come and serve. And it's done at 9 o'clock. They go by the Eastern time schedule because they know families need to get home and go to bed. So kids, it's a great environment for kids, families, and all that such stuff. So if you come serve at it, you get a free bracelet for your family to come in and do all the fun things that they offer. We'll have more details starting next week as we begin to get people signed up. On that note, I want to pray for us, and then you guys are free to go have a wonderful week. As always, if you have questions for us, reach out to us. We are cheering all of you on. And use the app if you have questions or prayer requests, or reach out to us directly as well. So Jesus, we just thank you for a new opportunity to build community. I just pray that today was the beginning of a new culture here at Blue Bridge as we go into a brand new season of hope. And with hope, we need community, Father. You had your disciples. The disciples had their disciples. And when they built churches, they did it in twos. And so I just pray that we can leave here today knowing that life was never meant to be done alone. That we will begin to long for community and long to go deeper and long to have a support system to laugh with, to cry with, to celebrate with, everything, Father, for our kids to have adopted cousins and so on. So we thank you for Amanda's words today, and I pray for her challenge that as we walk out our doors this week, we will begin to look around and ask you, who should I go after, Father? So help us run this race with all we got. We love you, Jesus. In your name I pray. Amen. Have a great week, everybody. Giving, buckets are in the middle of the table. There's multiple ways to give online, in the buckets. And also, if you have Connect cards with questions or comments, throw those in the buckets. The Connect cards are on the table. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. We're cheering you on. Enjoy this warm weather.